Hello, welcome everyone. My name is Erin Thompson. I am the faculty director of the Center for Gender Justice here at John Jay. And I am absolutely thrilled to welcome Bianca Xunise to come today virtually, along with Accessibility Services, the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies, and the art minor here at John Jay. Captions are available. You have the option to turn those on at the bottom of your screen. I'm going to record this event for later viewing by interested students. So if you don't want to appear in that recording, just turn off your camera. And if you're here for extra credit, just make sure your username includes your last name so I can give a list to your professors. And I'm going to put in the chat our final event for the semester at the Center for Gender Justice, which is coming up next week. And other than that, please take it away.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, it's telling me my camera won't settings, blah, blah, blah. Let's see if it'll work now. There I am. Hi. So glad everyone could join me today. What am I gonna do first? I think I'm gonna get my presentation ready for y'all. Thank you again for that lovely introduction and having me here. I'm so happy to be able to teach you guys the world of comics and using them as a tool for resistance. So I'm gonna try my best here to make this seem as seamless and professional as possible, and that I'm not like a total artist scatterbrain person. I'm a real professional cartoonist. So let's get started. So let's go ahead and also feel free to save some questions for the end. So while I go through this presentation, if anything, I'll look at my camera, actually be even more professional. If anything pops in your mind and you're like, oh, I have a question about this, or how do you go about this, or just any random questions about the world of comics and resistance and using those two things together, if you have a question about those things, feel free to save it towards the end. I'm going to try to save a little bit of time here. And I'm going till 1:20, is that right? Yes, no? 2:30, 2:30, okay, thank you. Yeah, I wanna make sure that I'm timing this right because I have a lot of little things here that I wanna fit in. So, okay, cool. So let's just go ahead and get started. I'm gonna hit that. Pop back over to the Zoom and share my screen. Haha. So here we are, comics as resistance. Hold on, I have dual screens. Every cartoonist, if that's something that you are really interested in pursuing, should invest in getting dual screens. It's really helpful when trying to edit and manage things, and it doesn't have to be an expensive endeavor. My extra screen was donated, and my computer is from 2008, and I still use it. So it doesn't have to be a money thing. You can get, I think you can get screens now at the thrift store. That's how old technology has become. All right, so comics as resistance with me, Bianca Xunise. Let's hit that next button on that slide. Here we go. And if anyone who I can see, if you could just give me a thumbs up if you can see this presentation, if it's moving, awesome. All right, cool. I'm Bianca Xunise, an award-winning and history-making cartoonist based out of Chicago. It's actually sunny today. And I'm here to chat with you all about using comics as a tool of social justice. So again, just to briefly just chat about me a little bit. As I mentioned before, I'm an award-winning cartoonist. I won an Ignatz for Promising New Talent from my comic called Say Her Name, which is a cartoon comic about my experience with police brutality in Chicago. I also made history as the second Black female cartoonist to be nationally syndicated, next to Barbara Brandon Croft. And for those who are like, what does that even mean? What does it mean to be nationally syndicated? That means that I have a comic strip in the newspaper that comes out every week, similar to like Peanuts, Baby Blues, Nancy, all those great things. Barbara Brandon Croft had a series back in the 90s. She still makes comics today, but there's definitely a gap between us. She's old enough to be my mom, technically. And so for her to be the first and me to be the second, and I'm in my 30s, there's a little bit of a more change needs to happen than for us just to be the two. And now we also have a third, Steen Stewart, who does Heart. She took over Heart, a legacy strip. So there's 3 of us now, so that's great. But there should be more. It's 2021. Let's get it popping. So moving on about that. So I just wanted to show some examples on this slide here of just an example of using comics as a tool of social justice. So here's a one panel that I did for the NIB, where we have a group of Karens marching for Target. During the uprisings last summer, there was a lot of looting. There was a lot of big box stores being burnt down, and people were really upset about the big box stores and the lives that were lost that caused these uprisings. So that's why we have this comic here. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit more about comics and why we use comics as a tool for social justice. Comics are disarming. So sure, you can go up to a person, you can go into a room, you can write a very long, heartfelt Facebook update, Facebook status about your views and about what you want to fight against, what you want to resist, what you want to put out into the world. And that's a lot of labor, that's a lot of text, that's a lot of reading that you're putting on your audience to consume and also to understand. When you are talking at someone or when you're expecting your audience to read something, especially a long block of text, you're expecting them to have view the world the same way that you do, and to understand the world the same way that you do. With comics, it's a little bit easier because it's a visual medium, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but it's also just disarming. So because it's a comic, it's cute. You have a very warm attachment to comics or to art, cartooning. It's probably attached to your childhood. It's probably seen as something that's a little bit more fun. So you're not necessarily going to think like, oh, I'm getting yelled at, I'm getting reprimanded, I'm getting told what I'm doing is wrong or what I'm not doing enough or something like that. Comics is just a way to kind of ease your audience into this world. So this is an example that I did for the NIB as well, which if you were unfamiliar with the NIB, I definitely recommend to check them out. It is a newspaper, an online newspaper full of personal essays, political stories, things that are going on the ground. Like imagine CNN, but just as comics. So this is one that I did for Halloween. We have a little bunny here, black girl on a bunny, you can see it's me, at a nightclub, and she's turned to a witch that's sitting here looking at her Guinness, and she's saying, don't feel bad. In February, people pretend to care about my culture too. And so on one end, you can say like, oh, it's just a Halloween comic, da, 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 but it makes you take a minute to think with it. And what's actually happening here is you have all these people dressed up as a witch, but they're not engaging with her, they're not talking to her. In a way, the witch feels a little bit like they're making fun of her and that they're not really appreciating who she is. And so it definitely feels that way for me as a Black person in February, to kind of feel like I'm being pandered towards during Black History Month, but I'm not actually being cared about. And so again, you kind of see this, you're like, oh, cool, witches, but then it makes you take a minute, makes you have to think and unpack what these things mean. So it sits with you. And then as I mentioned before, comics also are, a good visual medium, because you use visual literacy with comics. You use half the work is in the text, but most of the work is in the illustration of trying to portray an emotion, an action, an event in an illustration. And when I go about my comics, I illustrate more emotion than I do action, but I like to mix it. I like to balance the action with the emotion. But here you kind of see me trying to swallow my own ball and chain that's attached to my neck. And even if someone did not understand or didn't speak English, they couldn't read English, they could see this illustration here and see the English. And that's where illustrations are effective. Like, think of infographics. When you go to the restroom, when you are visiting another country, sometimes you rely on just symbols and images to help you navigate other places. And even when you are flying to that other country, when you pull out that comic, the back of the seat, it shows you how to protect yourself through a visual, nonverbal comic, a wordless comic that shows you how to put on your breathing mask and how to use your seat as a flotation device if that were to happen. That's why I love comics, because it isn't just about the words, it's about the imagery as well. And you can change the world just through the art. Anyone can participate. That's another reason why I love comics. You don't need to have a degree in comics. I know that I'm in a college and I should be promoting that part, but you can go to college and study psychiatry, you can study trees, you can study math, and you can still become a comic artist. You can do comics no matter where you are in your education or where you are in your life. You don't have to be a young person to do comics. You don't have to be like a comics professional. Anyone can draw them, and all you need is a tool to do it and the ability to do that. And even with that comes its own, personal afflictions. But I think that comics is great because it's a free for all. And in the parentheses here, I put for better or for worse, because with anybody can do comics comes with anybody can do comics. And so there may be some work out there that you don't necessarily agree with, or there may be some work out there that you don't like or makes you uncomfortable, or you just like, I just don't like it. And that's okay. Art is subjective. Art has its audience. Everybody has the things that they like. But again, but that's the beauty of it. It's a communicational tool. It's a language, and everyone has the right to share this language. And so here's a little picture of me holding my idea, and I'm like, my idea is the best. It's about accessibility. Overall, that's my pitch. That's my love for comics. It's all about accessibility. From anyone can participate, the visual literacy of it, and for it to just be sort of comforting, and for it to be for everyone. I love things to be equitable. I love things for it to be for all, not just for the elite, not just for white people, not just for a certain class or group of people. Comics are for everyone. Comics are used by everyone. I mean, even think of, not to get too galaxy brain, but think about the drawings in the caves done by some of the first people on this planet. Again, those are still illustrations. Illustration and comics, they would tell stories about the animals that lived in the area. Those were still kind of comics. Even you could say that hieroglyphics are comics in a way. It's just comics are a tool that'll be used over time, even as our language changes. When I teach comics to my students at DePaul, I'll show old comics from just the Middle Ages, from even before, where our language has changed, and even the way we write, our language, our letters have changed, and you can still again tell what's happening thanks to the comic. So it captures history, and I love that. It captures the moment of what's happening now. And even if you feel like God, what I'm going through isn't that important, or my world doesn't really deserve a loud bang. It's still recording history, and your personal histories are just as important as the ones that happen on the world news. So I see all I have to say is that comics are healing. I drew this comic in, let's see, if it's dated August, for me to do my strip, I have to do them about 6 weeks before. So let's say I drew this in June-ish. As a comic that I drew last summer. Again, during the uprisings, there was a lot going on during that time. And we have here me on the phone going, I guess I'm a little burnt out, but I'm hanging in there. How are you? And we have this girl on the phone going, oh my God, sis, I am so exhausted. I had to put fighting racism on hold for a while. You're such a strong Black woman. And so again, like using this comic, I can laugh at these instances. I can take moments in my life that hurt or that frustrated me and kind of turn it into the joke that is life itself. Life is funny in that way where it's not funny, but it is, where it's just kind of like, you know what can you do? You can't save them all. And comics has been such a healing practice for me, not just in my work, but just for my mental wellness. It's encouraged me to explore things deeper than I realized. Sometimes when you were approaching a comic and you want to write down this idea, you'll think of something that perhaps happened days ago, happened months ago, happened years ago. And the fact that that's still stuck with you may be something to not just unpack in a comic, but may encourage you to unpack that with a professional. And that's definitely been my journey with comics, is it's encouraged me to not just release these traumas and these tribulations through my work, but to also take that time away from the page and heal myself. And I think as artists, it's important to have that balance. There's this fear, there's this unspoken fear, there's this stereotype that if you work on your mental wellness, if you get therapy or take medication or meditate or do yoga or whatever it is that your practice is that you feel like you need, that your art won't be as good. I feel like my art is stronger when I take care of my mental wellness, because I can navigate it better. I can see the whole sphere. I kind of call when I can see the idea fully, I say I can see the sphere than just seeing it as a circle. When you just see it as a circle, it's flat and you kind of only see it one way. When you see the sphere, you can see all sides of it. And taking care of your mental wellness makes your comic stronger, because then you can see all sides than just the side that you were hurt. So I want to take this time real quick to read one of my comics to you all, just to give you an idea of how my styling, and again, to use comics as a healing practice. So this is a comic that I did for the Washington Post. They have a women's magazine, a vertical called The Lily. I do some comics for them, and this is one that I did for them last summer. Let me take a quick swig of water because I've been talking a lot out of my back, man. Taco Bell blast from 1990 something. 1989. Oh my God. Okay, hold on. Okay, so here we go. Each morning, I feel like I weigh 1,000 pounds. Each day is laden with headlines of Black lives being senselessly taken away by the hands of racists and abusers. On June 15, I learned that Black Lives Matter activist Oluwatoyin Salau was killed after detailing her sexual assault on Twitter. She tried to get help from police and social media, but unfortunately, no one heard her until it was too late. This story shook me to my core. I couldn't help but think of moments in my life that I felt silenced by those I reached out to. Most days, it feels like a miracle that I am still alive. Ironically, I've been inundated by texts from the same people who once ignored me in the past. So here's me in the corner. Oh, my phone blaring off. For days, I've been forced to relive traumas I have forgiven because my white and non-Black friends suddenly realize I'm a human being who deserves respect. Sorry about that one time. My life does not exist as a teachable moment. I am not training wheels in your plight to becoming a good person. Do the work to dismantle white supremacy within your own backyard. Having a Black friend does not erase that. We have a Get Out of Dismantling Racism coupon, 1 Black friend required for eligibility. In the end, most of these messages come out of a ploy to get me to absolve their white guilt, to convince them that they have been complicit with my oppression when I needed them most. Your complicit sins are forgiven, my child. Even more so, if I try to talk about anything beyond their guilt, they are suddenly back to treating me for folks to notice our worth. It is urgent that we protect the lives and the right to, Can you guys still see? I just got a notification. All right, cool. I'll start over. It should not take our deaths for folks to notice our worth. It is urgent that we protect Black life and the right to live one to the fullest. We failed Al-Watalian, but we don't have to let the silencing of Black women continue. Whether you are cis, trans, or gender nonconforming, all Black lives matter. So that's a more longer form comic. We're gonna do a little bit of a practice today. So don't feel like, oh my God, we're about to do like a 10, no, we're not. We're gonna just do some doodling. So if you want to follow along, if you have the tools, I will do a quick I will do a quick grab of art supplies myself. Let's see, what do I want to use today? I think I'm gonna just use the sketchbook. Hopefully there's some blank pages in this and I didn't grab a full sketchbook. I grabbed a full sketchbook. That's the thing about being a cartoonist, is all my sketchbooks are full. I think this might be the one. Awesome. Okay. So you may not have, I'm gonna stop my share real quick so you can see this large. You may not have the exact same tools that I have, and that is fine. Don't feel intimidated by that. I'm gonna just use some Bristol board. I'm gonna do this old school. I'm not gonna use my tablet. Sometimes I do. I use Procreate on my Apple iPad, but this is just blank Bristol board. I love Bristol board because I love to use smooth surface Bristol boards. It takes to ink pens very well. It doesn't bleed through. So if you're interested and you, or like what tools can I start? I love Bristol board. Also, I was in school, and even being as a freelancer, sometimes there's money, sometimes there's not. I love to just go to Michael's or Joann's versus just going straight to Dick Blitz. You can go to Dick Blitz, you can go to an art supply store, but if you're a little low on funds, you can go to Michael's, you can go to Joann's, you can go to their websites. They sell books, they sell paper as well. And they always have like a 40% off coupon, 40% off, 50% off, literally every time. If you shop at Joann's, if you shop at Michael's, only use the 40% coupon. They have it there for you, and you can get this for like $3. So that's just word to the wise. These are in this little unique mug. I have my pens. When I first was starting out as a cartoonist, I would use Papermate, Sharpies. You can get these for a pack of like 20 of them for a couple bucks. But these days I've graduated. I love to use Kuretake calligraphy pens. These are my favorites. These are my go-tos. You get a lot of control with these. But again, if you're just starting out, any old Sharpie will do, any old pencil will do. Use a pen, use a quill and ink if you like. whatever's your jam. So, okay, I'm gonna go back into our Prezzo here. Okay, so pro tips. I just wanna go through a couple of things for those who are interested in going into comics and interested in how to approach them. It's okay to have a lot of ideas. So here is an example of one of my 6 Chicks comics before I finished it, before it was colored. This is what it looks like when it's just inked. And this is actually was drawn on paper before I scanned it and put it onto my computer. Also, for those who don't have access to a scanner, that's okay. All you need is a smartphone. There's plenty of scanning apps available in either Google Play or in the App Store. Download one of those, use a free trial. I use that all the time. I don't have a scanner. I just use my phone and it's okay. Also, in terms of ideas, I love to keep all of my ideas in a Google Doc. I have too many Google Docs at this point, but I put all of my ideas in the Google Doc. And the reason why I use Google, I could access it from my computer and I could edit it from both. So if I'm on the train and I see something funny and I'm like, oh my God, that would make a really good comic. Or if I'm walking down the street and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot about this one thing. I could just pop up my phone, write it down. It's best for when you're doing comics to just kind of get in the habit of writing it down as soon as you have the idea. Because I'm pretty sure we all had thought of something funny, thought of something witty, thought of something clever. And then when that really, really juicy idea that you get right before you go to bed. You got that phone right beside your bed, put in the idea, you can put it back down, go to sleep, and then you don't have to worry. You don't have to like try to hold on to that idea while you sleep in hopes that it'll still be there for you when you wake up in the morning. It'll be there. So I love Google Docs. I can write them down. I can edit it. My spelling is terrible. If you've noticed presentation, I apologize. My spelling is terrible. So I always need someone else to look over that for me. So again, write everything down in there. And professionally, I don't know why Google isn't sponsoring me at this point, but professionally, you can also just have a vault of ideas. For me, someone who works on a deadline and has to create new ideas every week, I'm not funny every week. I'm not even funny every day. And so sometimes when the world is yucky, kind of like how it's been for the last year and a half, it's kind of hard to always be humorous or to find humor in things. And so I'm grateful to have a vault of one-liners, ideas, punchlines, all types of things that I can pull from. And I may change it. I may make a little edit here, update it to feel more now. But because I have this just vault of jokes, I can go there and I can trust that there'll still be a good comic there, even if I can't come up with something today. When you're working in political comics and you're working in comics as resistance, it is dire to be knowledgeable and to have your facts together. With my work, I definitely intertwine emotion with facts, and that is a very effective way to get your story out there. But still have your facts together. Don't just go off of emotion. Don't just go off of, well, this is how I feel. So-and-so said this or whatever, because when you have those facts, that's how you can really affect change. That's how you can really sort of, this is just beyond my feelings. This is a, I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. I was just using that as an example, but it's beyond that. It's a real life issue. And it's important for people to see to have those facts behind it, to see the humanity of these things that it harms. So when you're writing a comic about Black lives, like, see, like, it's more than just a platform. It's more than just a slogan. These are people that these issues are affecting. Thumbnail ideas before selling our final thoughts. So here is an example. Of one of my sketches of the scribbles. I do that all the time. Sometimes when I sit down and get ready to work on comics, a reasonable amount of time. And so this also gives me a chance to, like, is this funny? Should I rework this? I don't know. I need to marinate this for a little bit. And just to get the idea across, when I was in design school, one of the best advice that one of my teachers gave me was just to draw quickly and just leave it alone. Like, just if you're doing a thumbnail sketch, if you're doing a rough draft, don't try to make it perfect. Don't try to get it rendered as perfectly as possible. If your brain can understand your own scribbles, just scribble it down. And sometimes when you are more comfortable in just being loose or things like that, you'll carry that onto the final illustration. So it's fun to do that as well. So here's a comic where I'm saying, which racism, we can talk about capitalism as well, because those buddies go hand in hand. And then most importantly, what I always tell my students is don't forget the 5 W's when you are drawing a comic. This helps you ground your world. And your 5 W's are who, what, when, where, and why. It's like you're writing an invitation for people to come to your 6th grade party. You want to have the who, what, when, where, and why. So I use this comic as an example because it's a little abstract, and you might be like, how can I identify those things on just some dude staring at his TV? Exactly. It should just be, you should be able to ground it that easy. So who we have here? We have a young man here. What is he doing? He is watching TV when? Obviously when the news is on. It doesn't have to be concrete. You got to just be able to, like, oh, okay, he's watching it, evening news. Let's say it's evening news. Where? At home. We're in a pandemic now. He is not wearing a mask. I mean, he could be at a Best Buy watching the TVs there, but we're going to say that he's at home. Why? The news has been one of the biggest mediums recently with everything that's been going on. And so he's watching it just sort of enraged his own self. So he killed my family's business. And so you can kind of make your own assumptions. From there. And I should have shared my sequel to my thinking about it. Watch my computer now move exceptionally slow. You guys can see how organized my computer is now. Because I'm a Virgo and I deeply believe in being organized. Actually, you know what? No, I'm not going to go that way. I'm going to go some other way. I'm going to stop my share now. Now that I've put myself into a hole here. Uh-oh. Now we're stuck. Come on, Zoom. Why are you doing this? Haha. We found it. Wow, nothing's working now. Here we go. Yay, okay. So here we have the Cinco de Mayo comic in honor of Cinco de Mayo. And this is the one I did for last year. And we have two young men here. And he says, it happened to me, bro. Last year, I got called a racist for wearing a sombrero and a poncho and a faux mustache at a Cinco de Mayo brawl crawl. We have another young man here saying, unbelievable. When will people learn that it's more racist to call someone a racist? So there you go. Ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba. Wasn't that worth the time for me to find that? Sorry, I love sarcasm. That's my job. So let's practice. Hey, that's what we came here for, to draw comics. So let's see where we at on time. Yeah, we have time. Okay, so I'm gonna run down real quick what I want us to do, and then I'm going to time it, and then we're going to hopefully share. I'll share mine if no one else wants to share, and then we can open it up for questions. So first, I just want you to announce yourself. So here we have me. I have my microphone. You don't have to draw a microphone. This is just for the example. Panel 2, what's your soapbox? Mine says, y'all don't deserve Black women. So I'm singing. I can't sing. So in my comics, I can. And panel 3 is my final thoughts. Thank you. Good night. So I want you all to draw a quick little comic announcing yourself and your platform. And so it doesn't have to look exactly like this. This is not written in stone. This is not we all have to sing a karaoke song together. It is just announce who you are, what do you stand for, and what are your final thoughts. So let's do about, let's see, if it is let's do about 5 minutes per panel, and then we'll share. I think that should be enough time. So let's get started. I will play a little music in the background so we're not just sitting in an awkward silence. And I will put that back up. I'm just popping up my music in a second here. Trying to figure out the right vibes. I think this is good. I love to draw to music. I make a lot of playlists with silly names. This playlist is called Sad Keyboard. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this back up so we can all see it. So again, we're going to just do panel 1. I haven't even set the timer yet, so do not fret. I'm going to set it right now. And we're just doing 5 minutes. So it can be sloppy, it can be imperfect, it can be whatever you want to be. It doesn't even have to be you. It can be your dog, it could be your cat. Sometimes I draw my cat. So that's for me. She's my eldest. I'm clock starting now. I'm gonna waste all of my time trying to figure out what pen I want to use exactly. That's my problem. Here we go. So I'm gonna use this Faber Castell pen. This is one of the first fancy tools I got into. If you can see that. B for brush. I love this pen. I'm not gonna do this, also get ink everywhere. But this nib is sharp, and I love it when it's sharp. But you can pop it out when it gets dull and flip it, and then put it back in, and then you have a fresh nib. I love that. I think I got lost there for a second. Let me put that thing back up. There you go. My I have Comcast out here in the city, and it's been a mess recently. I don't know if it's been a problem where you are, but it has been a nightmare here. And we keep reaching out to them, and they're just like, "Yeah, internet is bad right now. How about that?" And that's as far as we get with it. I've paid them. I've paid them ahead, and it's Comcast. You know that's expensive. And I was like, maybe they just want more money, and no, the internet's bad. So let's see. Here, I'm gonna give myself a little bit more time because, and I'm going straight from ink to paper for you guys, just straight from ink to paper. This is scary for me. I haven't done this in a while. Let's see how we're doing on time. We got about 2.5 minutes left because I started over a little bit. What you can tell is I'm really restraining myself from making a silly face while I do. It's very hard for me to not. Thank goodness I'm just a little tiny person because you're mostly looking at my screen. But a lot of times I make the same face of the illustration.
Maybe a nourishing body.
Of course, we would get a commercial. We don't need that. We don't need an ad. Besides, we're almost at time. I forgot to add dialogue to this, so I'll probably have to do that. I just drew an illustration. I just drew me. Let's add my moles. There goes the timer. Okay, so we have our first doodle. Mine's only that big. So don't fear if you're like, oh, I couldn't fill the whole page. That's okay. We're just doodling. We're having fun. That's the point of this workshop is we're just here to just enjoy ourselves. This is not going into the net tomorrow. This is for yourself. This is for your personal practice. This is just to get those jitters out, to get that self-confidence of just pen to paper. That's the biggest hurdle when you're working on comics, is just getting over that initial fear of pen to paper. Your first comic may be the worst thing you ever made, or maybe the best, who knows? But you have to try in order to know. You only know after you do it. So let's move on to our next panel. Boop, boop, ba-doop. Here we go. What is your soapbox? So whatever your soapbox is, let's announce that in this panel. You know, whether it is Black Lives Matter, trans rights, I'm trying to think of something else. Are the trees in your neighborhood dying? The trees in my neighborhood are dying. They're ash trees. There's a lot of ash trees in my neighborhood that are falling apart that we're trying to raise funds to keep. What is your issue? I will say this, whatever it is that you're talking about, it should not only be personal to you, but it should also be something that reflects your life. It's not that I don't believe that non-Black people should not talk about Black Lives Matter. Non-Black people should definitely talk about Black Lives Matter. But when you are talking about it, make sure that you're uplifting Black voices in that you're using yourself as a catalyst to uplift and magnify, and that you are not centering yourself in whatever issue. If it's not an issue that doesn't affect you directly, do not center yourself in it. Make sure that the facts and those who are afflicted by it are the ones that you were highlighting in that comic. So let's put another, let's see where we're at time. Let's do another 5 minutes on the clock. I'll do 7 this time again. Or I'll just sing. How about that? That's what we want. The thing about doing these Zoom workshops is I can never tell if people are having a good time or everybody everybody's just sitting like this, like, what are you doing? And so that's my You lost me again. Let's see.
If you thought
There you go.
twice before you made another single. 1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 8 is 32. And 5 times 8 is 40. You know. 6 times 8 is 48. 7 times 8 is 56. 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 8 is 72. And 10 times 8 is 80. That's true. 11 times 8 is 88. And 12 times 8 is 96. And there's a chance to get off on any matrix. Because 12 times 8 is the same as 10 times 8 plus 2 times 8. 80 plus 60, 96. 1 times 8 is 8. 2 times 8 is 16. 3 times 8 is 24. 4 times 8 is 32. And 5 times 8 is 40. You know. Figure 8 is double 4. Figure 4 is half of 8. If you skate, you would be great.
Trying to make sure I didn't get kicked off again.
A figure 8, that's a circle that turns round upon itself. Place it on its side and it's a symbol meaning infinity.
Sorry about that. You just asked me to pop that open. See where we're at with time. We have 3 minutes on the clock. Time flies when you're having fun and drawing and taking some. It's a meditative process. Like I said, it's healing. Sometimes I like to light candles and incense while I draw. Just really feel the vibes. Let's see, we're at minute and 22. Okay. So I'm gonna put a little pause on the music for a second. Okie dokie. So now we have our final panel. We gotta wrap this up. We gotta tie this in a bow. We don't actually have to. That's actually one thing that I've been pushing lately is not every issue, not every comic needs to end in a pretty little neat little bow, because life doesn't always end in a pretty neat little bow. And some of these issues that we are talking about in these comics aren't necessarily resolved. And so there may not be a solution or a finite thought to end this with. Sometimes you kind of just have to close the idea or hand the baton to continue the idea. So we're gonna just, let's see, yeah, thank you, good night, because I was singing a song, but you have to say thank you, good night in your final panel. You can finish the thought in your last comic and your last panel, or continue it. But we're gonna just have one more little panel here. I'm gonna do 7 minutes felt good, so we're gonna do that again. And so I'm gonna put 7 minutes on the clock, and we're gonna finish up this comic, and then we're gonna share them. That'll be fun. Yay! Okay, let's boogie. 7 minutes on the clock going now. And as you all can see in my comic, I'm not much of a panels type of person. If you want to have panels are up to you. Panels you can live to the panels, you can kind of let it float on the page. The comic I'm working on now is just going to float. We got 3 minutes left to finish up this comic, y'all. 3 minutes. Time flies. Let's see where we're at. We got a minute left here. I'm gonna stop my share because I finished my comic. Also, again, this would be a great time to, if you have any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat if you want, or we can save them until afterwards. But again, let's see what we're doing. 50 seconds left. Remember to say, it's just like, ooh, it's triggering. A motorcycle sounds like there's a fun boyfriend here to pick me up. Okay, I'm gonna, how do I, speaker. Okay, I'm gonna show my comic here first. Okay, so I'm trying to get it up and make sure it's clear. So again, we have me here. Actually, let's see. I'll use a pen to point. I'm saying, hey, I'm Bianca Xunise. I know I've said this before, but don't touch my hair. Just don't. Thanks. Smiley face. So again, this is just short. I had to think of something on the fly. I'm not going to apologize for this because I actually really kind of like the way it turned out, especially this whole phrase in the hair. That was fun to do. So have fun with it. Think outside the box. Be a little weird. The thing about comics that I always have to remember, and I want you to also consider this as well, is that it's a comic. It doesn't have to be grounded in reality. It doesn't have to follow the rules of gravity and science and things here. You can be as silly as you want. You can go full Bugs Bunny with it if you want to. You don't have to be so stiff in your comic self. You can do whatever you want because it's your comic, it's your world. Blow it up if you want. So yeah, my hair could talk in my comics, and that's totally normal, totally fine. So let's see if anybody else would like to share while we're here.
Laura dropped her comic into the chat and it is hilarious.
I can't hear you. I can see you talking, but I can't hear you there. Oh, you know what? Because I'm muted. My bad. Okay, now talk. Still can't hear you. Nope. Can you all hear me fine? Okay, cool. I was a little worried. I was like, oh no, maybe I was muted for the whole thing. Anybody else? While Erin figures out her situation, would anybody else like to share? No? I still can't hear you. I can't. I don't know.
Oh,
there we go.
Yes.
Yes.
I was just saying that Laura dropped her comic into the chat and it is hilarious.
Oh, let's see. Let's all go.
Laura Perez.
In fact, I'll share it if my computer stops being mean to me.
And also someone asked a good question about where they might go for a beginner to learn about doing comic art.
Great question. 1 second, I was trying to pull up. Here it is. Oh, this is adorable. Okay, hold on. We got to look at this as a class. Okay, here it is. So here we have the Earth going, hey man, I'm not feeling so well. And then NASA goes to Mars. And Mars says, I feel like I'm catching what you have. Oh no, but oh no. Yeah, that's real. This is great. See, again, like we're not even I was talking about not touching my hair. Laura's talking about the environment. Again, these are totally different issues, but we're using the same medium of comics, a visual medium, to express these things. And again, it's just funny. It's cute. You're like, you'll think about Earth sweating with a thermometer in its mouth for the rest of the day, and it'll stick with you a little bit. You'll be conscious of that maybe, and when you're finishing up whatever you're drinking today, you'll remember to recycle it later, or you'll try to use less of a carbon footprint today or something. It'll adjust you. It's kind of like comics are this friendly way of getting you to sort of stand up straight. I think one of the reasons why I like to use comics as a medium to get the news out there is when I was growing up, my mom actually aspired to do comics when she was a teenager. She wanted to work for Mad Magazine when that was like the popular thing at the time. My mom grew up in the 70s, and so she never pursued comics. She ended up going into other things. But when we were kids, she would always have our chore lists in comic form, and she would tape them to the kitchen cabinets. When we would wake up in the morning, we would see what we were doing, and it would like have my brother mowing the lawn and me washing dishes and my other brother taking out the garbage or whatever it was. But it was informative. It kind of lessened the blow of just like, it's Saturday morning and we were playing video games and now we got to do housework. Like it softens the blow, but it stuck with us, and it's funny. And I kept them. I would keep them in a little folder because my mom drew me a comic. Like, come on. So comics are a great way to share. Let's see, does anybody else have one they want to share? Do they want to drop it in the chat and I can share it? No? All right, well, then let's go ahead and use up the rest of our time here to answer some questions. If anybody has any questions. If nobody does, I can read another comic. I have plenty of things that we can do to no one has.
So we have the question about resources for starting off as a beginner. And then Nadia, the head of accessibility services, asks if through comics, do you find that people are more willing to discuss sensitive topics?
Okay, so first, let's answer the first one with resources, starting off comics as a beginner. Believer magazine does workshops every single week, and they're free, and they host them on their website too. So if you're unable to make them, they're on Friday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern, I think it might be. Check out their website, go to their Instagram, Twitter, Believer Mag, @BelieverMag, or just Google Believer Magazine, and they have a wealth of conversations. I actually have 2 up there that you can go ahead and watch if you search my name on the search bar within Believer Magazine. But I think they should have a tab that says workshops. That's a great way to kind of just get your feet wet, get going, and you're gonna listen to so many different professionals and get so many different ideas. And it's great for kids too, if you want to do it with your kids or your niece or your nephew or whoever. You can do it as a family. It's definitely a safe space for families to get those work done. So honestly, sticking with these workshops is a great way to get started. But honestly, beyond that, it's just about personal practice. Comics is a personal practice that you can continue to just draw. There's no strict rules to doing this. There are ways to educate this, and there are ways to sort of do this in a straight line. But it's journaling. This is honestly a visual journal that we're doing here, and all you need is just a pen and a piece of paper and just write out your ideas. I started off doing comics as a journal. They were never meant for the world to see. It was just something that I did for myself to release some of my own personal frustration. Doug, growing up, he had a visual journal. I was like, I want to do that. So that's what I did. And eventually I would show them my friends when they would come over when I was in college, and they were like, these are good. You should. We're back. Okay. As I was saying before, social media is a really great tool to kind of practice and just put it in the water. My only thing with that is when you put it out into the world, then the world owns it, and so does their opinion. So if you're a little bit more on the sensitive side and you don't really want to be swayed by an audience, you can keep things to yourself for a while. You can practice comics on your own if you want, and when you feel like you feel confident to put it out there, then you can put it out there. But you don't feel like you have to share it online, because even now, even with the comics that I do with Six Chicks, I get a lot of angry letters, but I also feed off of that, so it just keeps me going. So, but just to answer your original question, there's workshops on Believer Magazine that you can take. I'm not necessarily sure about Xunise's resources for comics courses, but Believer is a great place to do it for free. And again, just doing it yourself. So what was the next question? I can't quite remember.
Nadia asked if through comics do you find people are more willing to discuss sensitive topics?
Oh, yes, absolutely. I feel like comics, as I said before in my presentation, comics is a great medium to discuss sensitive topics. And I roll over here real quick and hopefully not make a mess. Okay. I'm a part of this anthology here for the NIB because I've given them 8 advertisements called Be Gay and Do Comics. And this is an entire book. Let's see how many pages we got. I don't even think there's about 245 pages of stories, of queer stories. And it expands across everything from personal tales to historical stories like Marsha P. Johnson and all the types of queer leaders that we should never forget, because the social change that they have done for us doesn't. So like for some people this is a sensitive subject. For some people talking about the LGBTQA community it makes them uncomfortable. Versus here they talk about all types of things that may those intersections, because one thing that you may realize in your practice is that, excuse my list, when you get ready to talk about something, you may realize, oh wow, this doesn't just affect Black issues, it affects women's health, it affects queer issues, it affects classism. It's all of these things are overlapping each other. But I mean, also just look at how adorable, like this is yummy. Like this looks like you want to bite into it like a funfetti cupcake. And so, and that way you're like, you see this on the stand, you're like, oh, this looks fun. Like, let's read it. And then all of a sudden you're reading about, you know, how queer people were treated in the Holocaust and how, you know, police brutality and things like that. And I as I said before, I was given an Ignatz for my piece on police brutality, and that was a very hard thing to talk about. And even that experience for me was a bit overwhelming to be awarded for this horrible thing that happened to me. And even today, I'm still processing it because it happened fairly recently. I think it happened in 2017. And sitting, and I'm pretty sure everyone's kind of had this experience of sitting in the pandemic, in quarantine, you've been left with your brain and left to unpack some things. And with all of the recent stories and the nonstop stories of police brutality, it can be triggering to remember that and sit with that. But I'm still grateful that that story is out there. And I'm still grateful that my story ends with me being alive and I could be here to share this work with you all versus, you know, the other version of that story is that would have been the end of my life. And, but I'm glad and I'm grateful that I can use this platform to share that's life or death situation in a comic, and talk about in the story. How much time do we have? How many do we have? A ton of more questions, or
I haven't seen any in the chat. And we're a bit over time, in part because I just want to keep listening to you because
oh, you know what? I'm on Central Time, so I'm timing myself centrally. So I'm like, we still got 30 minutes. I'm like,
oh no.
My bad, y'all. Well, I'll finish up my last thought here. But what I was saying was just that being able to use this tool to be able to share my story just it inspires life and it wants me to keep going. It wants me to keep sharing more of these stories. And again, like I said before, comics is healing. They use it in what am I looking for? Therapy, visual therapy. Sometimes you go into therapy and they make you draw, and it's literally the same practice. We are just drawing out the junk that exists in our heads and putting out into a page, and hopefully making an effective statement. And as you all saw, just beyond my own comic about a person touching my hair, because I was touching my hair and I was like, gotta make a joke. The other comic from Laura with the planet, like, that sticks with you. And that's all I want. It's just to start a conversation. Comics may not necessarily solve the issues, but it'll start a conversation. And that's what we're trying to do, is just start a conversation. And you can go from there. And then, heck, if you want to, you can put your comic on a t-shirt and wear it to your march or wherever you want to go, and people can look at your shirt and be like, hey, what is that? And you're like, actually, I drew this. And the conversation starts from there. And so I hope you all are feeling inspired to go out there and draw. It's quite nice out here in Chicago. I don't know how the weather is where you are, but sit in the park, draw a little bit, put your mask on. I love to do that. I love to just big blanket so no one reaches my space, unfurl it, sit in the park, draw, and just let the world inspire me, because we live on a beautiful planet and we want to take care of it and we want to share our voices. So use comics as that medium. And thank you all for having me here. I apologize for going over time. My bad about the Central to Eastern time. I always, to this day, as long as there's been time zones, I always get confused by them. That's my bad. But thank you again for having me. Erin, did you want to say anything before we wrap?
Thank you so much. It was great having you. Messages of thanks and appreciation are pouring in and are very well deserved. It's always so nice to invite somebody to come that I'm already a fan of and just be like 100 times more a fan at the end of it. So
yay. And again, like, feel free to reach out to me. All of my @s are Bianca Xunise. My email is Bianca Xunise. Everything's Bianca Xunise. If there's anything that you're like dying to know, or you didn't want to ask in front of the class, like, send me an email. I'll be happy to respond.
All right. Thank you so much. All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you very much.